Hello, my name is Alex Dyer. I'm the Canon of the Ordinary here for the Episcopal Church in Colorado, here with another Canon Conversation. And I'm here with Katie Mears. Katie, what is your title at Episcopal Relief and Development?
Yeah, I'm the Senior Director of the U.S. Disaster Program.
And where are you now? You are not in Colorado, so where are you based out of?
No, I'm sitting at my kitchen table in Portland, Maine.
Lovely. Thank you for joining us here today. We have been on a call, the Canons of the Ordinary and the bishops across the Episcopal Church have had a weekly call. Now it's every other week with Episcopal Relief and Development and the presiding bishop's office, which has been just a tremendous resource. So I just want to say publicly thank you for those calls. And Katie is on them quite often. And one thing we have been talking a lot about is mask wearing. And there is a mandate here from our governor here in Colorado to wear masks at public spaces, at least in indoors. We are also strongly encouraging outdoor as well in public spaces, but a lot around singing. Our officiants, there is a thing too, but to try to push them to wear masks as well. So you have some experience with just kind of across the country. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of mask wearing and what Episcopal Relief and Development recommends?
Yeah, I can just say that I think folks hopefully are starting to know this, but that mask wearing is probably one of the, if not the most high reward, low risk ways that we can be involved in reducing the transmission rate here. The evidence seems to be showing that if folks wear a mask and if other people wear a mask, we could dramatically reduce transmission and put ourselves in a totally different space on this virus. That's not happening. But to me, it's just a really easy thing that we can all do to not only protect ourselves, but more importantly, protect other people. And for me, the thing that I keep thinking about, and I think that the church has a real opportunity around, is that we understand also the importance of symbolic gestures. So I've been thinking a lot about, do I wear a mask when I'm out, walking around with my kid at 6 a.m. in my neighborhood, if I'm not seeing a lot of people? I have gone back and forth on it, and I will admit that sometimes it certainly is related to how hot it is and how fast he is scootering. But by wearing it, I'm showing the other people that are out that early that I'm paying attention and I'm caring about them, and that I hope they're also going to wear a mask. And I do think, at least in my little neighborhood, there has been a real uptick on that kind of casual usage and outdoor usage. And the thing that makes me feel when I travel is it makes me, when I'm driving down a street in another town and a lot of folks are wearing them, even if they are spread out, it makes me feel more comfortable if I do need to zip in somewhere or get out and get some gas. So it's a way of showing people that you care about them, even if sort of rationally you're not actually coughing in their face, 3 inches away.
And I think you've talked a little bit about those calls too, about modeling the behavior that we want to see in others. And I think all of us leaders, lay and ordained, may have that responsibility. I would say do have that responsibility to kind of model that behavior and that care.
Yeah, and to think about why we don't want to. I think for myself, again, it's hot, fair. It makes my face sweaty and it makes my face break out, fair. Or I don't like people telling me what to do. What's the reason? And then spending some time, and again, maybe this is the right call, praying on that. What's that about? And that for myself, when it's resistance, maybe I could pray to get that to be let go and open my heart a little bit more. Because even if I am wearing it when I rationally don't think I need to be wearing it, at a park or something, if it makes somebody else feel safer, that's actually valid. That's fair. And a little bit of discomfort is probably worth somebody else's comfort. And I think, again, that's a Christian message around sort of how we are in relationship to other people. It's not exclusively about my sweaty face. It's also about how somebody else feels being around me.
Yeah, and I think we've been struggling with that a little bit. I think part of it has been formation around that. Maybe we haven't done enough formation. It's all been around me instead of we. And in some ways we have, as Episcopalians, least in the past before this, prided ourselves on being a little bit more about the we and not just the personal Jesus. But it's kind of a pop quiz for us, is trying to put our faith into action. So how have you seen, talk a little about what you've seen about the transition from me and my personal stuff, and you said about, wearing the mask and it's what it should be, to how have you helped make the transition and seen other people make the transition from me to we in the corporate?
Yeah, I think that, I think I'm going here. The thing that I think a lot about is Paul's image around the body of Christ, and that we are the body of Christ. And again, it's not I am the body of Christ, it's that we are. And he talks a lot about how the most vulnerable are to be treated in that, which is they are to be protected and covered and respected and loved. And so if it's all about like my rational assent to mask wearing is an individual choice, I'm actually not following that teaching around me in relationship with the full body. And so sure, me as like the left thumbnail, like might not feel like I need to wear a mask. But as a part of a body, if there's an infection that comes in on the left thumbnail, like it can very easily spread to the full body. And that has real physical consequences to the most vulnerable members. And Jesus is really clear about who matters most, and it's the most vulnerable members. And so to me, it's been really helpful to just go back to those really basic biblical teachings about where community is, and sort of, and it's not a bunch of individual relationships, it's a group conversation. And I think, again, I think it's fair that folks struggle sometimes with these. But I think what we've seen from other countries and other diocese, other people, that how it's a muscle and a practice. And we had a really strong muscle memory and a really strong habit around going to church on a regular basis and not wearing a mask. And now we have to figure out how to have that same muscle memory and sort of warmth around this new set of behavior. Because if every time you put on a mask and every time you sign into Zoom church, you feel sad about what you miss, it's both fair, but it's also setting you up for real struggles, because I think this is going to be our new normal, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I think there is, and I don't think we've done a good job, and I maybe such other conversations, but not with you, about lamenting what we've lost.
Totally.
I think we've just kind of moved on and put that behind us, when the reality is there is some real lamenting that needs to be done for what is lost. Because it wasn't just about wearing masks, it's about coming together and touching. And, I didn't realize how touchy church was and tactile it was until you start to kind of peel back these things and we realized we couldn't do these things. So I think it's looking totally different.
Totally. And I think that that's a place where, but I think this fits into our Episcopal metric, like making space for that in our prayer lives, like what we miss and what we need. And that, yes, some of those are huge, like racism. And some of them are really small. Like I miss, we were having a thing in our family where, like it's really hard to figure out who people are when they wave at you when you can't see their face.
Yep.
Like that's rough. Like, and that's a real, I can have that. I don't have that warm feeling when my neighbors wave when I don't know who my neighbors are. Like that's not huge. It's pretty small on the scale of suffering, and like it's fair. And that we can bring all those things, whether they're really big or really small, to God in prayer without feeling guilty that it's like not a big enough loss. So like,
all the little things kind of add up too, I think, around things. So there's a lot of things that people are missing in churches. Even some of our congregations, some of our churches are choosing to continue in virtual worship. So there, in a sense, there's some loss there and things different. But even the churches that are coming back to in-person worship, there's a loss. There's a things. And I think people are trying to do good behavior, but not always maybe kind of living into their best selves. Type of thing. So, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, about kind of coming in and maybe why, do you have any theories on kind of why we may not be acting as our best selves, or what's that's really about?
I think that I try to be as kind to folks and myself when we don't live up to the standards that we wish we were held, that we wish we lived into, and then try to make it a learning experience. So I think that these are all new habits, like sort of like never touching your eyes in public, like never, like just like all these things, never hugging, never, like I've definitely seen people see each other across a parking lot, hug, and then like jump back because they knew they weren't supposed to, but they had done it sort of reflexively. And so the churches that I've seen that are doing this the best is they're thinking of each week that they hold whatever in-person things they're holding as an opportunity to practice and to learn and to just talk about it for the next week. So I have, friends who are youth group leaders that are doing sort of outside distanced youth group gatherings because people are so lonely right now, but they have a part of that agenda be, did anybody feel uncomfortable with anything we did last time? And how can we address that this time? And I think that figuring out how our congregations can do that, whether that's individual reflection, whether that's in a family, whether that's as a church, but like people saying, yeah, I got hot in the middle, so I took my mask off, or like I did touch that doorknob and forget to use hand sanitizer and then I rubbed my eye, like just like running through, because these are all new habits. I think the real challenge is that if you do that the first week and then nothing happens and you don't talk about it, the way that risk works is it can become a risk tolerance. So the first week you took your mask off in the middle of the prayers of the people because you got hot, but then you remembered and you felt bad. And so you pulled it up again and then you didn't get sick. So then you do it again the next week, but it's longer. Or, and again, those are so natural. And how can we help each other in kind ways and loving ways to reinforce healthy and safe behaviors instead of like policing each other.
Yeah, and it's walking that boundary. I think, there are certain things where we've asked congregations, so like, if somebody's not willing to wear a mask, we've asked them to kind of suspend the worship and kind of until that's adhered to, just because of the stuff we went through beforehand. But, we're trying to, and I think it is a tendency to go to almost that policing things, even when congregations welcoming people back, like, make a space for them. Like now, Episcopalians have always had their own kind of, a lot of Episcopalians, I know, their own pew that they always go to. Like if you're taking reservations, as some churches are doing, like get Miss Smith her pew, like put her there and do a welcome thing for her. Try to kind of like welcome her back. Because I think you and I have talked to, and I'd kind of like to kind of wrap up with this little sense of around, I think we always are always going to worship too, about things, and it's always our go-to because we're really good at it. But there may be other needs, and talk a little bit, especially as this is going to go on too. This is going to go on a while. We taught priests for at least into Christmas, probably well beyond that.
I'm thinking for myself about virtual Easter next year, and then either I will be right or I'll be pleased.
Don't take it the wrong way. I hope you're wrong, but I
know, totally. I hope I'm wrong too, but I want to just like think about it and prepare. How can we do that better next time? Because I worry that we'll be doing it. But
so if this is long term, right? This is going to be a long term thing for us to kind of think long term. What do you think some of the needs are about, or the people taking down masks, or the people not wanting to, or people kind of rebelling? Can you talk a little, because we talked a little bit before with this about, it wasn't necessarily about the mask. Maybe there is something deeper, and maybe in long term we need to mine that a little bit more carefully.
Yeah, I think just for one thing, my sense from the people I know at least is there's the small percentage of people who are like rebelling, for whom that is a good term. Like they intend to not follow the rules. To me, then there's like a huge group of people that intend to, but struggle for a whole host of reasons. From my sense is that the people that are intentionally, coughing on other people without wearing masks in public, or like not washing their hands, like that doesn't seem like that's very easy to engage with. The easiest folks to engage with are the people who are like in the middle. They mean to and they struggle. And so the thing that I always ask myself and ask them when I can is why did that happen? Like, why did you take your mask off? Why did you hug that person? Why did you grab that banister and then rub your nose? Like, just like, no, just like, and you have to get, again, to a place where that's a completely neutral question. Like, literally, why? I'm curious.
You're curious more than judgmental.
Yeah, like, I'm really, like, I care about you, and I worry about that behavior, and I'm just wondering why you did it. And then usually there's something to learn. Like, I am unsteady on my feet, so I have to grab that banister. Or I can't really breathe well in this mask, or whatever. And then, especially around mask wearing, which I sense is it's a big issue across the country. If the person can't breathe well for a long period of time while wearing a mask, and yet they are drawn to come to church, how could that be met in a way that's a little bit safer? Like, that need, that isolation, that desire for connection with God, those are fair and to be valued and validated.
Yeah.
And yet, can't be met safely in the current conditions. And so how could we, instead of thinking like, let's do right to, like, at 10, because that's what we do, like, Jesus didn't say that part. Jesus said we needed to be community for one another, and we needed to break bread. But, like, how can we meet the needs that people are telling us through other means? And there's no good answers to that. I'm hearing a lot of really hopeful stories about the power of small groups and the power of fellowship, because what people are missing is the community they used to have in worship. And sometimes they're going back to worship and finding that the community is not there if we can't sing and stay and eat food together and do all those things. And so maybe there's another way to meet the need for community and a connection with God, but not in the same old package. And then hopefully we'll get back there in some way, shape, or form down the road, but maybe not in the near term.
So I think we do have familiar paths that we know, well-trod paths that we have gone numerous times in the sense of whether it be connection or community or whatever too. But I think at this time, God may be calling us to forge new paths and to do things, which is difficult.
And to me, what's exciting about it is I think it might show us that there's other people on those paths, and that like we have become the people that walk this path. And that's a lovely path. And like, no, I don't mean any disrespect at all to that path. But as we try on other paths, like, to me, the exciting thing is like, who's there? Like, who are we seeing?
And that path is well trodden. We can come back to that path if we need to go back to that path once this is all over. But to have more options, I think, is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and who will we meet and what will we learn? And therefore how, and again, for some people this might not be exciting, but for me, how can the well-trod path change in what is learned in this path?
Well, great. Thank you, Kate. I think it's a good place to stop, as in all these conversations that they could go on forever. So thank you for your time. And I understand on a personal note that you and your partner are expecting a second child.
We are.
Any day now. So,
any day, maybe next week, maybe today.
Well, thank you for doing that, because I know you're going to go on leave for that. But thank you for jumping in and squeezing in this Canon conversation and talking to the Episcopal Church in Colorado. We appreciate it. And thank you for all the work that you are doing on behalf of not just the Episcopal Church in Colorado, but across not just the United States, but as you know, the Episcopal Church goes many other countries as well. So thank you. All right, take care.
Bye.